NBC News, New York.
And David Brinkley, NBC News, Washington.
Czechoslovakia has paid the highest price, the loss of its freedom, for the liberal democratic reforms instituted 8 months ago. Today, troops of the Soviet Union, East Germany, Poland, Hungary, and Bulgaria crossed the frontier of this dissident communist country and occupied it. Every major city, every important airport, every military installation. Then they arrested Alexander Dubček, the Czechoslovak Communist Party leader, and other leaders. There was little resistance at first, 23 people killed throughout the country, several hundred wounded. But tonight in Prague, there was heavy machine gun fire. The capital, Prague, with its party headquarters, radio and television stations, and Prague Castle, was the principal objective. Until the invaders took them off the air, the radio continued to broadcast, and Czechoslovak television filmed the invasion and beamed it to Vienna. It has been received here via satellite. In Prague, the behavior of the invaders, most of them were Russian tank men, although there were some Polish and Bulgarian troops accompanying them, was for the most part almost detached. But where there was resistance, and there was some, scattered and tentative, it was put down mercilessly. At one time during the day, the Czech news agency reported conscientiously, 4 men so far have been shot dead and about 180 wounded in Prague today. It also said that 1 Soviet soldier had been seriously wounded. At 2 o'clock in the morning, Prague radio went on the air to tell the Czech people what had happened. On the 20th of August, Prague radio said, around 11 p.m., the armies of the Soviet Union, the East German Republic, the Hungarian and Bulgarian republics crossed the border of the Czechoslovak Socialist Republic. This happened without the knowledge of the President of the Republic and the Presidium of the National Assembly. At this hour, the Presidium of the Communist Party was in session to deal with the matter of the preparations for the 14th Party Convention. The Presidium asked all citizens to keep calm and not to put up any resistance. The radio said our armed forces did not receive any order to offer any resistance. The officials of the Communist Party and the National Front remain in their posts as the representatives of the people and their organs, elected in accordance with the laws of the Czechoslovak Socialist Republic. Somehow President Ludvík Svoboda managed to go on television from Prague Castle, and the people listened to his message in the streets. Dear friends, he told them, in the last hours a difficult situation has arisen. For the present, I cannot clarify it. As President of the Czechoslovak Republic, I turn to you in the full responsibility of my post and urge you to keep courage and calm and act as honorable Czechoslovak citizens. One of the most astonishing phenomena was the fearlessness of the people of Prague. Many of them climbed on top of the tanks and armored cars and attempted to reason with the Russian soldiers, to assure them that they were not enemies of the Soviet Union, that except for a few minor details, their two countries were in perfect accord. One young girl, though, beat her fists on the barrel of a rifle held by a paratroop lieutenant and screamed at him, "Go home. Do you know where you are? You are in my country. Go back to your own country. Go away, you idiot." The lieutenant seized her wrists gently and took her hands away from the rifle. And all he said was, "Yes, I know where I am." Other groups of people summoned up the courage to sit down directly in front of the tanks. The Russian tankers watched them warily but impassively, occasionally swinging their gun turrets. From Soviet officialdom came the explanation that it had entered Czechoslovakia with its hardline allies to render necessary help to the fraternal Czechoslovak people, adding that it had acted on an invitation from party and government leaders. It named neither the party nor government leaders. TASS, the Soviet news agency, published an appeal to Czechoslovak citizens ostensibly supporting their liberal reforms, but insisting that anti-socialists had taken over the new regime. Obviously, the Czechoslovak government took no stock in what the Soviets said. They sent protest notes to the ambassadors of all 5 nations. Less than 24 hours after the occupiers entered Prague, they converged on the building of the National Assembly, which was then in session. The Czech news agency said the troops entered the building in mid-evening, but that the deputies ignored them and continued their deliberations. The leader of the Czechoslovak Communist Party, Alexander Dubček, was taken prisoner and removed to an undisclosed place. One eyewitness report said that Dubček, Josef Smirkovsky, and other party dignitaries were taken away in an armored personnel carrier. Up to then, they had been held in the headquarters of the party's Central Committee. And 4 minutes before 8 o'clock this morning, the Czech radio made its last official broadcast. The announcer simply said, "When you hear the Czech national anthem, you will know it is all over." And then the anthem was played. At the request of the United States and 4 other countries, the United Nations Security Council went into emergency session tonight to consider the invasion of Czechoslovakia. David?
The news brought an angry reaction from President Johnson and a sorrowful one from the Czech ambassador to the United States. First the president and then the ambassador, Karol Duda.
The tragic news from Czechoslovakia shocks the conscience of the world. The Soviet Union and its allies have invaded a defenseless country to stamp out a resurgence of ordinary human freedom. It is a sad commentary on the communist mind that a sign of liberty in Czechoslovakia is deemed a fundamental threat to the security of the Soviet system. The excuses offered by the Soviet Union are patently contrived. The Czechoslovakia government did not request its allies to intervene in its internal affairs, and no external aggression threatened Czechoslovakia. The action of the Warsaw Pact allies is in flat violation of the United Nations Charter. We are consulting urgently with others to consider what steps should be undertaken in the United Nations. Ambassador George Ball has been instructed to join with other nations in the Security Council to insist upon the charter rights of Czechoslovakia and its people. Meanwhile, in the name of mankind's hope for peace, I call on the Soviet Union and its associates to withdraw their troops from Czechoslovakia. I hope that responsible spokesmen for governments and people throughout the world will support this appeal. It is never too late for reason to prevail.
Today, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Czechoslovak Socialist Republic, with the endorsement of the President of the Republic, and on behalf of the Czechoslovak government, informed the ambassadors of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, Polish People's Republic, German Democratic Republic, Hungarian People's Republic, and Bulgarian People's Republic, accredited in Czechoslovakia, to transmit to their respective governments a resolute protest to the requirement that the illegal occupation of Czechoslovakia be stopped without delay and all armed troops be withdrawn from Czechoslovakia. In this historical moment, we express our hope that the governments and peoples of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, Polish People's Republic, German Democratic Republic, Hungarian People's Republic, and Bulgarian People's Republic will understand the seriousness of the situation created by this act, which cannot be explained anyway and all the less made stand to reason, and will make it immediately possible for the Czechoslovak people and its legitimate representatives to continue their activities without delay.
Publicly and privately, it was clear that while the U.S. government was anguished at the invasion and at Moscow's nervous fright at allowing even a little dissent anywhere in its empire, there was nothing overt or specific that Washington could do or would do.
The Huntley-Brinkley Report is produced by NBC News and brought to you in color by Big Tip Pall Mall Gold. More fine tobacco, longer filter too, so you make out better at both ends with Big Tip Pall Mall Gold.
The best banana in the bunch. Peel it, and what have you got? A naked banana. But if you add more tobacco at this end for flavor and a longer filter at this end for mildness, you'd make out better at both ends. And so we made Big Tip Pall Mall Gold just that way. Except we left out the banana.
You make out better Republics with Big Tip Pell-Mell Gold.
Or Pell-Mell Menthol.
What's the matter?
I can't sleep. I'm all tensed up.
Well, take a sleeping tablet.
Aren't they all alike?
No, this is different. It's Nitol.
Safe?
Sure, just follow directions, and it's non-habit forming.
So what's different?
Look, read this advertisement in Good Housekeeping.
Nitol's sleep-inducing ingredient dissolves more than twice as fast as any other leading brand.
It helps you get to sleep fast. You wake up raring to go.
Nitol, with the Good Housekeeping seal.
Do you soak your dentures clean? You can brush them cleaner with Denture Cream. Look, we soaked that heavy lipstick stain, soaked it all night in the leading tablet cleanser. Even with soaking and vigorous brushing, that denture material is still stained. Now try Denture Cream, the powerful denture toothpaste. In no time, Denture Cream scrubs, brushes, polishes dentures clean, leaves your mouth toothpaste fresh. See the difference? Denture Cream outcleans your soak.
Two prominent communist leaders denounced the invasion of Czechoslovakia. Nicolae Ceausescu, president of Romania, called it a big mistake and a severe danger for peace in the world. President Tito of Yugoslavia said Czech sovereignty had been terribly violated and trampled upon. It first became apparent in July that the Czech liberal regime might be in trouble. Russian soldiers and tanks were in the country for maneuvers, and they delayed their departure when the maneuvers were over. Finally, the Soviet troops did pull out, and the Czechs felt more secure. The streets of Prague, meanwhile, looked more and more Western. There were girls in miniskirts and open criticism of communism. A girl, echoing the ideas of many Czechs, told correspondent Garrick Utley she wanted no major compromise with the Russians.
Well, it depends what kind of compromise, what compromise of what intensity or compromise of what meaning. What meaning for, let me say, for the both nations. If it is a slight compromise, everybody would support him. But, you know, there is a large scale of compromises.
But you're excited now.
Yeah, I'm dead excited.
And you aren't afraid of anything that might...
Well, I'm not afraid, I'm just excited. You know, I can feel the tension after all.
Despite the optimism of the Czechs, the pressure from the Soviet Union continued. On July 29th, Dubček met Russian leaders in the Czech hamlet of Černá. During the conference, Russian soldiers took part in new maneuvers just across the border in East Germany. On August 3rd, Dubček met leaders of the East European Communist Bloc in his home city, Bratislava. The meeting ended with a bland communique endorsing the concept of national sovereignty. The Czech liberals felt their bid for freedom was a success. In Prague, Dubček was cheered wildly. 8 days later, the Russians moved in. At Columbia University, an authority on communist governments, Professor Zbigniew Brzezinski, said he thinks the Kremlin, in going into Czechoslovakia, acted out of fear.
The fall of Khrushchev, I think, has meant now, in retrospect, the coming to power of a more conservative, bureaucratic, even reactionary group in the Soviet leadership. And it is this group, supported by certain key elements in the Soviet political system, which feared that the contagion of freedom would spread from Czechoslovakia to the other communist states.
Would you say that the Czechs were lacking in discretion as they undertook the liberalization of their country?
No, I think the Czechs acted with as much discretion as was possible under the circumstances. What the Czechs did, I think, with great self-restraint and with great maturity and a sense of responsibility, was to draw a line between internal democratization, which they pursued with determination and courage, and external loyalty to the Soviet-dominated Eastern European community, which they did. They did not want to leave the Warsaw Pact, as the Hungarians did in '56. They did not want to leave the Comecon. When the West Germans made approaches to them, they responded very cautiously with great restraint. They continued to profess their loyalty to the communist community that exists today in the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. I don't see what more they could have done. And this is what makes the Soviet act so brazen and so one-sided, and so, I'm sorry to say, reminiscent of what Hitler did in 1938 and 1939.
I'm drawing an organization chart. It's for the most important company in the world, the family. With a guy called Dad and his partner, Mom, running the show, and 3 bright junior members. When the children leave, the partners can concentrate on a sunny future of their own. Since they don't want investment headaches, they chose a Prudential annuity that guarantees a retirement income they can't outlive. If you'd like a sunny future, see your Prudential man, providing the most retirement for your retirement dollar. That's something Prudential understands.
The Huntley-Brinkley Report continues, brought to you by
Anacin, with the specific compound that relaxes tension as it relieves headache pain. Reach for Anacin.
One day off. I gotta change the screens, paint the woodwork, fix the roof, clean out the basement.
Pain, headache pain. Its tension drains everything out of you. Reach for help. Reach for Anacin. Anacin relaxes the tension as it relieves pain. Anacin brings you back fast.
Good as new.
Anacin relaxes the tension as it relieves pain.
Here are 2 packaged spaghetti dinners. The ingredients in this package are tomatoes and onions and pepper and salt, and oregano and meat and garlic and bay leaves and pasta and cheese, which are also the ingredients in this package. One package takes you 4 hours to cook. Chef Boyardee takes you only 12 minutes to cook, and everything you need is in it. Why not put our package in your package? We do the shopping, you do the cooking.
For the first time in 2 months, enemy shells have hit downtown Saigon. One round hit the National Assembly building, and another landed near Independence Palace. The shelling started a fire in the Chalon area of Saigon. 1 person was killed, more than a dozen injured. David?
Senator Edward Kennedy of Massachusetts made a speech today, his first one since his brother's murder. He spoke in Worcester, Massachusetts, called for an unconditional end to the bombing of North Vietnam, saying it had not been effective and that peace would never come so long as it continued. He then called for 3 other points. First, after stopping the bombing, negotiate with Hanoi the withdrawal of all foreign troops from the South, theirs and ours. Second, help however we can to build a stable government in Saigon. And 3, demonstrate our sincerity by reducing this year the number of American military in the South. Then he went on to say why he thought these 4 points would be effective.
None of us would urge a cessation in the bombing if it would cost American lives. But 2 facts are unmistakably clear. The first is that while the bombing has made the movement of North Vietnamese men and material to the South more difficult, it has never reduced it. The Secretary of Defense confirmed this fact just last week. The second is that an end to the killing in Vietnam can never be negotiated as long as the bombing of North Vietnam continues. Halting the bombing would thus save many more American lives than it would ever endanger. It would make less likely a new assault by Hanoi on our troops, and it would finally test their willingness to begin serious negotiations. I am not unmindful of the difficulties our withdrawal would create for the rulers of a Saigon regime. But it has yet to demonstrate either popular support or a desire to commit that nation fully to the struggle. The only way, I fear, that we can cause the Saigon government to broaden its base, increase its appeal, and negotiate an accommodation with the National Liberation Front is to make it clear our intention to withdraw from the South as Hanoi withdraws, and our complete unwillingness thereafter to bear the burden of their responsibilities and pick up the pieces of their failures. The government in Saigon must not be given a veto over our course in Paris,
our cessation of the bombing or our mutual withdrawal of troops. They must be given clear notice. They must be given clear notice that their chief prop will be taken away as soon as we can conclude such negotiations with Hanoi. In short, they, as we, will have to negotiate with their adversaries without a military victory. They, too, will have to make concessions. They, too, will have to work for peace.
Kennedy made no political comments at all, except to say that he spoke as one who was not running for anything this year. The hospital said late today General Eisenhower was resting comfortably and that there were some small grounds for optimism, though his situation remained critical. The platform hearings in Washington wound up and the committee moved on to Chicago, where the action so far has been before the Credentials Committee. Here's a report from contributing editor John Chancellor.
It's a world all its own in here in the 85-degree heat during the 12-hour days as the 110 men and women of the Credentials Committee work on the family squabbles of the Democratic Party. It's a little like a giant divorce court. The arguments are intimate and bitter among politicians who have known each other for years and who now struggle among themselves for votes and seats on the convention floor. At the center of the action is the chairman, Governor Richard Hughes of New Jersey, a chain-smoking Buddha from Princeton. He balances the arguments, keeps the Humphrey and McCarthy people in line, and delivers the judgment.
That they're welcome.
So far, it is going this way. Badly for the entrenched Southern delegations. Last night, the committee voted overwhelmingly to vote out the Mississippi regulars and replace them with a racially mixed delegation. Going not too well for the McCarthy people. In challenges involving Washington, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut, McCarthy forces didn't pick up as many votes as they would have liked. Today, the committee heard the challenge of the Texas delegation, a challenge which charged racial imbalance. As always, the Texas argument took a long time, involving Byzantine Texas political feuds and charges of party disloyalty. And now, this afternoon, the Georgia challenge, another involving charges of discrimination, perhaps the key to the rest of the Southern challenges. This year, the committee is hearing an unprecedented number of challenges, but since the McCarthy people are talking seriously about carrying many of their complaints to the convention floor, all the struggle and toil and heat of this room this week may turn up again next week to be gone through again.
The Cigarette Improvement Kit. Contents: 1 Tareyton charcoal filter. Instructions: put Tareyton's charcoal filter on your cigarette and you'll have a better tasting cigarette. Of course, we can't guarantee it'll smoke as smooth as a Tareyton. For that, you'll have to get the complete package. Now you've got Tareyton tobacco, and when that tobacco is smoothed by Tareyton's activated charcoal filter, it tastes even milder. Face it, if you want your cigarette to smoke as smooth as a Tareyton, it'll just have to be a Tareyton. That's why us Tareyton smokers would rather fight than switch.
In the United Nations Security Council a short time ago, the Soviet Union said the case of Czechoslovakia could not properly be brought before the UN. The United States representative, George Ball, replied,
"There is not the slightest doubt that this request is proper, that it is demanded by the present crisis, and that the inscription should be promptly effected if the Council is to live up to the responsibilities given it by the Charter. The situation the world faces tonight, Mr. President, is an affront to all civilized sensibilities. Foreign armies have, without warning, invaded a member state of the United Nations. If the Security Council does not seize itself of this gross violation of the Charter and deal with it promptly and incisively, its vitality and integrity its very seriousness of purpose will be subject to serious question. Rarely has a situation come before the Council where the ugly facts of aggression have been written so large and in such unmistakable characters. The Soviet Union has arrogantly announced to the world that it has sent its armies into Czechoslovakia, and the evidence is beyond question that it and its client states have done so in order to impose by force a repressive political system which is plainly obnoxious to the people and leadership of Czechoslovakia.
Most of Senator Edward Kennedy's speech today was brisk and businesslike, devoted to the issues of the day. But in the beginning of it, he did say a few words about his personal feelings and emotions since his family was again struck by tragedy. And while he did not try to stir the audience's emotions, what he said was stirring nevertheless.
For the last 10 weeks, I have not been active in public life. I have concerned myself with my family. I have spent much time by the sea, clearing my mind and my spirit of the events of last June. Some of you have suggested that for safety's sake and for my family's sake, I retire from public life. To those who have so written, my deep thanks for your kindness and for your concern. But there is no safety in hiding, not for me, nor for any of us here today. Like my three brothers before me, I pick up a fallen standard, sustained by their memory of our priceless years together. I shall try to carry forward that special commitment to justice, to excellence, to courage that distinguish their lives.
There is no safety in hiding, he said, for himself or anyone else. Michael V. DeSalle, a convention delegate, says he will put Kennedy in nomination for president. It will not be impossible for the convention to turn to him, not in spite of his youth, but because of it. The party activists have not had the heart to talk politics to him, but they say among themselves he would be a formidable, if not unbeatable, candidate. Good night, Chet.
Good night, David, and good night for NBC News.
You throw a lot of good things in here that cost a lot of money. Permanent press, synthetics, colors. So why risk yellowing or graying from strong stain removing? That's why we invented Safe Day Bright Bleach. You just can't buy anything safer and better to help whiten and brighten than Day Bright with borax and 2 brighteners. Use strong bleach or pre-soak for tough stains, and Day Bright to whiten and brighten everything else.
See an NBC News full-hour special report on the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia and its worldwide repercussions. Tonight at 10, 9 Central Time on NBC.
This is Chet Huntley inviting you to stay tuned to Channel 4, Nashville, for Dateline Today.
Tonight's your night out. You're due to go bowling, but you got such a headache, can't seem to get rolling. Now you get a glass of water, and won't be long. You take a BC powder, and you come back strong. BC's got 2 pain relievers, and because it's a powder, it's ready to go to work instantly. So you get a glass of water, and won't be long. You take a BC powder, and you come back strong. You hear?
WSM Television